Welcome to my channel, where the scariest stories come to life. Before we dive into today's chilling tale, make sure to hit the subscribe button and turn on notifications, so you never miss a story. Now, let's get into the horror. This is my scariest experience of being back home by myself. It happened back when I was 12 years old, and it was a long time ago. Now I still remember it really well, though. During that time, I lived with my parents, older sister, and younger brother. It was very rare that I would be at home by myself, but somehow it happened. It was a Friday evening, and my dad was out of town until the next morning for work. He didn't have to travel out of town a whole lot, but every now and then he did. I remember my sister was at her best friend's house and was going to be sleeping over there. As for my mom and brother, they were at some sort of birthday party my brother had been invited to. I was not invited, and my mom went with my brother because she was basically helping the birthday kid's mom with the party. That left me home alone, all by myself on a Friday night. My biggest plans were to relax and play video games. I was pretty excited about it myself. I rarely got to have the entire place all on my own. Our house was pretty average for the most part. There were 2 levels, with all the bedrooms being upstairs. Downstairs was the living room, dining room, and kitchen. My mom left that afternoon shortly after I got back from school. She gave me instructions on how to make a frozen pizza. I had never cooked before, but I loved frozen pizza. At about 7 p.m. or so, I cooked it, and everything went pretty well. I went into the living room and sat in an office chair right in front of the TV. I started playing my PlayStation. This went on for several hours. At about 9 o'clock at night, though, I suddenly heard the sound of somebody stepping onto the front step where our door was. The living room was at the front of the house, so it really wasn't that far away. When I heard the person walk onto the front step, I assumed it was my mom and brother returning from the birthday party. I kept playing, expecting to hear the door open at any point, but after several minutes went by, nothing happened. Nobody entered, and I got curious. I got up and walked over to the front door to look outside. When I did, I didn't see anybody there. There was no one at the front door, and my mom's car was not in the driveway either. As I was looking, though, something caught my eye. Off to the left, I saw what appeared to be a man walking through the front yard. Just barely in my line of sight, he disappeared past where I could see, towards the side of the house or maybe the neighbor's yard. I couldn't really be sure. I was a little bit nervous after seeing this, but I assumed the man had left. I didn't know who he was or what he was doing. I kept watching the front yard for a minute or two and saw no further movement. After that, I returned to my video games, but I couldn't help being creeped out by what I had seen. I was trying to take my mind off of it, and after about 10 minutes, it was finally starting to work. That is, until I suddenly heard another sound, the sound of someone trying to open the back door of our home. Our back door was connected to the kitchen and went out to the patio. This sound was much louder. I instantly stood up and ran over to the phone. I called my mom's number. During that time, I didn't hear any more noises. I told my mom that somebody was trying to get in through the back door, and she told me to call the police. She also told me she would be home as soon as she could, but the birthday party was still going on. After that, I ran upstairs to my bedroom. Once I was in there, I called the police and told them that I thought somebody was trying to break in. After giving them my address, I went and hid behind my bed. I covered myself with tons of blankets. I was really too scared to want to know what was going on. As I waited for the police to arrive, all I could do was hope the man had already left and not tried breaking in any further. I wasn't hearing anything, but then again, I was covered by a pile of blankets. It felt like forever, but maybe 10 minutes later, the police arrived. I remember I got a call on the phone and was told they were there. I never would have gone down otherwise. I got up, but I could hear people talking, so I stayed in my bedroom. I remember a while later, there was a knock at my bedroom door. I was terrified until I heard a voice on the other side saying it was the police. I answered the door, and there was an officer there. He told me they'd actually caught the man who had broken in and been hiding inside. I was told the police got there right in the nick of time. The man had got the back door to the house open and had just entered and started hiding when the police arrived. The man was arrested and luckily didn't get far. I was honestly shocked when I heard that, but luckily everything turned out fine. He wasn't able to steal anything or do anything to me. Damage to the back door needed a little bit of fixing, but that wasn't the hugest deal. After that, though, I didn't want to stay home by myself for a while. A couple of years back, my wife and I threw a Halloween party for our kids and a few of their friends. The deal was we'd entertain the kids until around 8 o'clock that evening, then they'd head off to their respective houses to finish their nights off with Halloween sleepovers. In turn, that allowed my wife and me to throw a grown-up Halloween party. Halloween had been both of our favorite holidays growing up, and since we promised to spend the holidays with my wife's side of the family, we threw the All Hallows Bash to spend some time with mine. It was definitely a family affair, just not quite wholesome enough to warrant having the kids in the house. Anyway, the party was fantastic. Everyone was having a great time, and my parents had agreed to spend the night in our spare rooms so they wouldn't have to worry about driving or getting a cab home. That meant my father and I ended up huddled up around the fire pit. It was around 1 in the morning. We were finishing off any beer we could find while making each other laugh and telling each other stories. At some point, I asked my dad if he knew any spooky campfire stories. I wasn't seriously asking him. It was more that I'd asked him half-jokingly because it was technically still Halloween night. As it turned out, he did have one to tell me, a creepy story he'd kept secret from me for almost 35 years. You see, my dad grew up in a small town in Ohio. He eventually moved back to Cincinnati, where he met my mom and had us kids. For college, my dad went to UC Irvine, which is out in California, about 30 miles south of Lane. He said that he did love it out there, but he knew he wanted to come home at some point. He reminisced that his days as a beach bum are some of the most treasured memories of his youth. I knew that, of course, but what I didn't know was that apparently, my dad had dated some smoking hot windsurfer chick that he'd met on Newport Beach during the summer of 1982. His buddies and he headed down to the beach to throw a ball around. They saw this sign advertising windsurfing lessons, and the two instructors were a tall, wiry guy and this absolute fox with a mess of golden blonde hair. My dad said that he and his buddies found a spot for their stuff and started to throw the football around. All Dad did was walk off toward the windsurfing instructors, though, and talk his way into getting a lesson from old Blondie. My dad hated windsurfing but thought it was a great way to get close to the instructor. Once he was satisfied there was mutual attraction, he asked her out, and they started dating. She seemed like a wonderful girl at first, but after a month of seeing each other, he realized there was some weird stuff going on. There was a strange love triangle with her roommate and some professional surfer she'd met on a trip to Hawaii. My dad explained that he trusted the roommate was just a roommate, but over time it became obvious they were romantically involved. He didn't mind her dating other guys, they weren't official or anything like that, but what he did mind was her duplicity in trying to lie to him. She hadn't been honest with him from the get-go, and as they say these days, that's a big red flag. They stopped seeing each other, and eventually, my dad moved back to Cincinnati. He started what became our family. Now, cut to 1994. I was 6, my little brother was 3, and for my dad, the memory of Blondie and her weird love triangle was a distant, distant memory. One day he opened up a newspaper, and there she was. He didn't recognize her at first, to the point he thought the name was just a coincidence, but there was no coincidence at all. The woman in the newspaper was the very same one he dated while in California. Her name was Dana Sue Gray. For those of you unfamiliar, she murdered many people in early 1994 and used their credit cards to go on a shopping spree. Once she realized there was a big manhunt for her, she cut off all her hair and dyed it black. The cops still caught up with her in the end, and she was sent to prison for multiple murders. Dad said it was obviously very shocking. My dad said the thing that creeped him out the most was that he actually wasn't all that surprised. Sure, he was shocked that she had murdered many people, but it seemed in character to him, especially toward the end of the relationship. It became obvious to him that she simply didn't think rules should apply to her. She seemed to have this idea that she could do whatever she wanted and get away with it, maybe on account of her good looks. My dad said it was very scary thinking that a minor and irritating personality disorder had grown and grown until one day she thought she could murder people and go on shopping trips with their credit cards, and the law would never catch up to her. It makes me think that psychological stuff like that is almost like a sort of cancer. You have to deal with it when it's small and manageable, or you let it grow and spread until it's far too late to ever recover. What used to be a single flaw has taken over a person completely. Thanks for sticking around till the end. If you enjoyed the story, don't forget to give the video a like and leave a comment with your thoughts. And if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss a terrifying tale. See you in the next one.